Hi and welcome. Today, my guest is a mind coach, a mentor, and a speaker. David Rahman, thank you for coming to the show. Hi.
Hello. Thank you, Ray, for having me on the show. Really great to be here.
It's good to have you here. This is the first time I get a mind coach on the show, so I'm very excited.
Me too. Me too. Me too.
So, David, how is your heart doing today?
How's my heart?
Yes.
My heart is full, open, full of love.
I like that.
Let me just show you something. I'm going to skip
Please,
away for a
yes.
second.
Trrrm.
My heart is full of love.
Oh, I love that. Nice. May it
Full of
always
love.
be
Full of
full of
love.
love. Nice.
Yes. Yes. Indeed. How's yours?
Full of gratitude. Yes, thank you.
Wonderful.
David, why a mind coach?
Why mind coach? Wow. Long journey. Long story, long journey, but I'll try and keep it as succinct as possible, to be honest.
The
Um,
platform is all yours.
Yeah, a long time ago, when I was in the 1980s, when I grew up, and um, I was surrounded. Obviously, I'm of Asian origin, family originally from Bangladesh, but I was born and brought up in the UK. So I've always felt I was accepted, but there was something when I was growing up, I didn't feel confident or comfortable in my own skin.
Mm,
So by the time I went to university, Ray, I arrived in university, and like a lot of universities, you go away from home, and you arrive then in the hall of residence, and the first night it wasn't good. I was very, very homesick, and I just didn't feel I fitted in. And I think a lot of my life I didn't feel I fitted in, and I didn't feel confident. So I was about 19, whatever age I was, 18, 19, and I felt the world was dark, and I felt I was struggling to breathe inside. So um, I realized then I didn't have confidence, and I couldn't understand why all these guys had confidence, and people just seemed to be relaxed, and I was just sort of uptight and not confident, and it carried on into my 20s, and I I worked as an optometrist, which is an eye person.
okay. I
So
knew it.
yeah, so I gained a little bit of confidence talking with the public because you have to appear confident as an optometrist. So my first degree was biochemistry. So
Mm,
I'm very interested in the biochemistry of the body, hence the brain, and obviously as an optometrist, again the brain because the eyes are part of the brain. And then over time, people were saying to me, "Wow, you're a good listener. I like telling you my story." And people were telling me this story over and over again, Ray. And I think in my late 20s, I started thinking about, I really, really want to help people, but I've got to help myself first because I'm still not 100% confident. I'm still not me. So I started researching, where I started researching things like counseling, psychiatry, psychology. But when something doesn't resonate with you, I will say don't follow it. But I discovered online in the very, very early days of internet, with the dial-up, I discovered um, coaching. It was called life coaching, and then that it sort of flicked a switch. It's like, wow, this is what I want to do. And it was that time I decided, right, I'm going to have to make a big decision. And that was
mm,
back in 2000, 2001. I decided, right, I want to become a coach. But hey, anyone I told things like life coach, they thought, well, what's that? How are you going to make money from that? How are you going to have a career from that? You've got a very good career. You're well paid. You drive a nice car. You live in a nice apartment. So I had financially everything to lose, should we say. And the uncertainty was there. But I always believe that if you really discover something that you think resonates with this, then it's time to at least research it. at least researchers. So then a few years later, 3 years later, my father passed on. My father passed on in October 2002, and then my son was born in January 2003. And at that point, I don't know if you have children, but they change the way you look at the world. Your world changes. And when your world changes, the way you think changes. And when the way you think changes, your vision of life changes. And I thought, right, I'm going to start working on myself because I still wasn't, overly confident. Even though people say, oh, you really look confident. We guys, to a certain extent, can put it on, if we
That's
have to.
what I was just going to ask, because that's
Yeah,
a very, very important distinction. Being confident, appearing confident.
yeah. And my definition of confidence is being comfortable in your own skin,
Yeah.
really. But people can see if you're not confident in your own skin, and the way you talk, the way you consistently walk, act, behave every day. And I wasn't doing that. I knew I wasn't doing that. I was confident sometimes, but not other times. And it was a struggle, right? It was a real struggle, and I met a lot of people who had the struggle too, but I couldn't help them because I had to help myself first. How it's difficult to help someone when you can't breathe yourself. So that was my journey. That was the start of my journey, deciding, right, got to do something. Otherwise, my son's going to grow up with a father who's not comfortable in his own skin. And as you know, as you may know, babies and children, they pick up on what we say.
True. That's so true. Um, just to answer your question, I do not have kids. I'm not married, but I totally believe on the perspective and the perception of our world. Once it changes, then the magic happens. I totally
Yes.
believe in that.
Yes.
But I'd like to go deeper on the impact or the effects of lack of confidence,
Mm,
especially with men, because I do know that men tend to express their lack of confidence differently than women,
mm,
by behavior, by materialistic stuff, owning things that could make them feel this sense of confidence, even if it was just temporary. Knowingly, it is temporary, but they still do it just to get this, sense of, I am here, see me,
yes.
look at me.
Mm.
So, how does it affect a man's life?
Confidence or
Yeah.
lack of confidence. Yeah.
You could talk about both, but from where I want to really highlight is the lack of confidence, but pretending to be confident.
Yeah. I think, one of the ways that you can become confident is to actually stand differently and to act differently. They say fake it till you make it. Up to a certain point, that can be true. You can actually build confidence up from a point of standing differently, talking differently, because it does change your neurons in your brain, the way you walk and talk. But if you are, for example, having to pretend you're confident or having to put this over as confident, it's draining. It can be energetically draining, and it's exhausting, and you want to go home and just go to sleep because you're being something you're not. And again, I'll just repeat it. Confidence is being happy in your own skin with all your faults, because as human beings, we are prone to fault, and that fault is the thinking. Hence, I work as a mind coach, because everything starts with our mind,
Oof.
and our mind developed as a baby, and it got all this information in, and this information was our beliefs from our parents or whoever brought us up. Could have been a grandparents or your aunt and uncle. So whatever you're exposed to then causes you to think in a certain way. So you'll have, two people two children in a family, and they end up being different
Yeah.
Personalities.
I
But the
resonate with that. Yes.
yeah, but the personalities are something that we have anyway. I believe that science will show that our genes carry information apart from um, our physical characteristics. Science is showing that our genes carry other information. And with personalities, you find out that one child might be seems to be confident out there and and very bubbly. The other child wants to be more quiet, play with the Lego, be by themselves. But that doesn't mean either one is more confident than the other. That's just
This
personality.
is basically how people become introverts and extroverts.
Yes, and
Yeah.
introverts and
Okay.
extroverts. Exactly. Yeah,
Or they end up being like me, somewhere in between. And
an
I'm,
ambivert.
yes.
Ambivert. Yeah.
But
So that yeah, funny
yes,
enough, that's what I am, an ambivert. So
an
sometimes I
ambivert.
yeah, ambivert. Sometimes I want to be quiet. Sometimes I want to be like that. But it
With
doesn't matter
and I love
as long
that.
as, yeah, as long as you
So,
know who you are.
David, how what I'm because I do work with a lot of men, and most of them they appear confident, but they're really not.
Mm,
So we are working on establishing that and improving that confidence, and you know how it goes.
mm,
What would be your, I don't want to say advice, but
mm.
a lot of men around us,
Yeah.
the whole world, are being pressured by their families, just like you said, or by their partners, romantic partners, or maybe colleagues or managers. And that affects a man's confidence and his own, he wouldn't be
Yeah.
comfortable in
Yeah.
his own skin. It will impact his performance, his mindset.
Mm.
Tell me more about that.
I mean, many things affect a man's confidence, but again, it's back to from when you grew up as a child,
But
and
what's
in your
the
teenage.
solution?
Mm.
And then what? You want to break the pattern.
Exactly, you want to break the pattern, and again, as you say, things like your partner, your wife, does influence you. But if you remember that I call it the blueprint, which is in my book, and the blueprint shows that your partner has a blueprint as well, and your partner isn't perfect either. Neither are you. So your partner may be suffering confidence issues. Your partner she may be confident, she may not be. Again, if you're surrounded with people who are not confident, the chances are they will try and pull you down because they're not confident. So, for example, you might be a lady who's looking absolutely amazing, and as she walks past a group of ladies, they could be saying, "Who does she think she is?" You know. But if you are confident, comfortable in your own skin in wearing that dress, it doesn't matter what they say. And this is similar with a guy, really. If you are comfortable in your own skin, again, it doesn't matter what people say. But yeah, you're right. People do influence us. If you're talking about our confidence is being influenced by friends, of course, it's been influenced by our work colleagues. So somebody might say something derogatory, but if you inside you love yourself. Now, if you want to expand on comfortable in your own skin, it is all about this word. If you truly love yourself, you do become very, very confident over time. And the thing that I've learned over my life is I didn't love myself as a teenager. I didn't love myself as a 20-year-old, 20-plus-year-old. I didn't love myself as a 30-plus-year-old. I didn't love myself really into my mid 40s. Now I'm 53. So I love myself. And it's not an ego thing. This is a heart driven, I really like myself. Now, when I work with a client, because I work with a lot of men and women, one of the questions I ask them initially is, and they're shocked by this, because we're talking about their stuff. And then halfway through the first session, I'll say, I want you to answer this question. On a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being very high, 0 being 0, how much do you love yourself? And I want you to think about what figure comes to mind immediately when I say that. And they'll say Seven. Okay, so
I
that means
don't
a
like the
five.
number seven because it's not an eight and it's not a six.
Yeah. They'll say seven, and I'll say, "Oh, it's a five," or they'll say four, or that's a two,
Hmm.
and they look at me. They'll say, "What do you mean by that?" I'll say, "Because we like to overestimate ourselves when we're asked a question like that because it makes us feel good in that moment. But really, it's a two, isn't it?" Aye, you're right. It is a two. So it all boils down to self-love. It all boils down to self-love, and you can withstand any pressure from anyone if you really love yourself. And when your heart is open, and you said to me earlier on, how's your heart today? Very well, thank you. But if you'd asked me that, say, 10 years ago, when I was 43 or 42, actually, not 53 until March the 4th. So if you asked me that 10 years ago, I might have said to you, some days good, some days bad, you know.
Hmm.
But and it's true. I'm not perfect. No person is perfect. I have good days and bad days, but the level of self love one has for yourself determines then your confidence because you suddenly became confident in your own skin. So
So, David,
men
when you
do.
say self love, I
Hmm,
want to focus on that topic. When you say
okay.
self love for men, what kind of
Yeah.
activities, of course, apart from getting coaching or therapy or all the mental health support, but
Hmm.
after that, how can a man maintain self love during his daily life? What are the activities that a man can do to improve or to strengthen his self love?
Well,
Of course, in general speaking, we can't just generalize, and it's not a one
yeah,
size fits all. But in general, what could
yeah. Well,
a man?
surround yourself. For a start, surround yourself with people who support and encourage you. You know, so you just surround yourself with the right people. That's the one. So many years ago, the rule of five, the average of five people. You surround yourself with the five people who are going to support and encourage you because they say that at the end of your life, you'll be able to look back to see who really was there just for the parties and who really was there for all the other times to support you. So you need that connection. And during this time in the pandemic, the COVID, people are finding out that more and more they just miss that connection,
Yeah.
that connection with their buddies, with their family, with their friends, their work colleagues, So we can do things like this on Zoom and we can do WhatsApp and FaceTimes. Of course, it's great, but it doesn't replace that physical interaction, that energy. Because at the end of the day, right, we're energy. If you look down the microscope at the what we're made of, we're solid energy, vibrating at a certain frequency. And this has been proven scientifically by quantum physics. But when a guy surrounds himself with the right people, that's, again, you're saying, I'm open to love. I'm open to your love. So again, you're feeding off the energy, you're feeling love. So again, you can maintain that. That's just one way of doing it. Um, Self-care is so important for us guys.
Speaking my
Self-care.
language.
Sorry?
You're speaking my language.
Yeah. Oh, self-care is so important. I have a lot of women friends, a lot of women friends, and always have, and a lot of them have good self-care routines,
Yeah.
which is great. They have massages and long baths and reading, and I always tell my male clients, have a massage,
Mm.
have a nice bath. I can't have a nice bath. I'm a shower guy. No, have a nice bath. Get a book. Relax. Really go to that part of you that you
Self
haven't
care
explored
could
before.
go from that's a very, like self care is anything that makes you feel good, really.
Oh,
Saying no when you want to say no is self care. Not eating that because you have to is self care, or eating that extra bar of chocolate, forgetting about your diet is self care. So, self care is really, for me, I don't like to corner it with very specific things. This is why I told you just let it be general. But at the end of the day, is what really makes us feel good is self care. Why is it a lot of people don't do that?
it's obviously they don't value it. because if you look at someone's life and they say, "Ah, I love music," and then you say, "When do you listen to music? What do you listen to?" "Oh, I haven't listened to it for a while, but I've got a big music collection." Really? So you just look at somebody's values, and then you look at their life, and then you can say, what are you doing per day, per week, per month? And you can see their priorities. And if their priorities isn't self-care, then they don't value it. That's as simple as that. They perhaps value being on Facebook, being on Instagram. You could be there for hours on end, or they value Netflix, sitting there, and they'll say, "Oh, that's my self-care, Netflix." Okay, okay. What about your body? When you move in. So it's it does. It's a new routine.
Yeah.
And you and I know that we are our day is the summation of all the routines, whether they be intentional or automatic, autopilot. So I was working with a client yesterday um, evening, and I was just reminding her that we are the sum of our routines, and she was struggling. And I said, "Well, how are you going to improve this routine?" So I reminded her of the power of the post-it note,
Oh, I
and
know it was
that can really alter you. Yeah, how that can alter routines. And if we were to just, I remember doing this with guys years ago, and just saying, "Listen, so clearly you don't value self care." "Oh, I do." "But when was the last time you did self care?" "Oh, I went on a hiking trip when 2 months ago." "Oh, so over the last 2 months you've done nothing?" "Yeah, work got in the way." "Right, okay." So as Peter Drucker, the leadership and management guru, said, "What gets scheduled gets done." So with guys, they love they can schedule, especially guys, in certain professions.
exactly.
So even if you say to them, "Listen, Friday afternoons, can you schedule some time? Do you have to work till 5, 6?" "Yeah, yeah, okay, but do you really have to?" And then when you get people to schedule it, especially the self care, and then they see it, I say, "Look, for the next month, just do this. Trust me, you'll be as productive in work, and you'll have that self care time." And they love it. They love it. It's just that they haven't put it in the part of the routine, prioritize. And then they admitted to themselves, "You're right. I didn't value it before, but I do now."
100%. Yes, I totally agree. So tell me more about your method. It was very interesting to see that you are combining the psychology and neuroscience.
Mm.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, sure. Um, well, I come from a science background, as I mentioned. So my parents are doctors. So I've always, they sort of channeled us into science, even though I loved reading, I loved psychology and philosophy and wisdom and all that when I was about 11, 12 years old. I was just interested in that. My parents were saying, "No, biology, chemistry, physics, maths, you're doing that."
Yeah.
So we were sort of channeled or pummeled into that. And it was hard. I think that's what caused some of my confidence to drop
Mm.
because I was very much interested in the mindset, even as an early age. I remember reading sort of magazines on performance, sports. And I remember going to bed, and I was about 12 years old, and I had these key cards, and they had famous sporting stars in the 1970s and 80s, like Jimmy Connors and Nadia Comaneci and Mark Spitzer, all these famous people at that time. And I was just interested in their biographies and how they've achieved so much. So that's my earliest recollection of excellence. And then the science bit, I always wondered when my first degree was biochemistry, and I always wondered, why am I doing this? Is this ever going to be useful to me? And now I look back and I'm thinking, oh, it is very useful to me because because when I speak on stage, I'm quite qualified to talk about all this, and it comes naturally. I can read a science article on neuropeptides and neuroplasticity and understand it straight away like that and actually talk about it
Yeah.
without notes. And I can talk about neuroplasticity for hours without any notes. And so what I found out, obviously, and we all, a lot of people out there know, is that the brain can change. And the brain can change. And all these routines we have, all these behaviors we have, are actually ingrained in our brain, just like a pathway through a forest. But what science has demonstrated is that if we stop walking along this path that's been formed in the forest by other people, and we start walking through another part which hasn't been explored, then if we do that 1,000 times, we'll form a pathway.
Yeah.
And the same happens in the brain.
How long would it take for someone to change their behavior or to change their mindset?
Yeah. So the first recognized study, one of the first recognized study was the UCL study in 2009, which was, it takes around 66 to 100 days to create a new neural pathway in the brain. And that was a study where they looked at London cab drivers over a period of years, um, and then extrapolated the information with other studies and showed that approximately um, 66 to 100 days, which is about 3 months, should we say, of repetitive sort of actions can create a new neural pathway in the brain, um, to help you think differently or learn a new instrument. And, if a 70-year-old wants to learn the piano, they can do it, providing that they're open and they're able to practice
Yes.
daily. Yeah, so it's something that I'm very passionate about. So my methodology, when I do talk and tell people, is that okay? You can change. We've all heard this old saying: "You can't teach an old dog new tricks." That's an English saying, which is now we're finding out it's BS. It's total BS. You can learn new things at any age, and I've worked with 70-year-olds, some 8-year-olds, and somebody contacted me this morning, and she was 68. She'd watched me online yesterday in a workshop I gave for the local council, and she's reached out because she said, I've spent years seeing councillors and nothing's happened. And
Amazing.
can you give me some? Can you? How much do you charge? She said, and can you help me? So we can do that. So the first thing is to get that person's belief system. This is where we're going to say, I can change. I
Yes.
can change.
Mm.
And then saying, right, okay. And obviously I tell them my story, how I changed. I went from not being able to come out of my room because back in 1988, Ray, I couldn't even come out of my room in university. I was so shy but lacking in confidence. Um, I've gone from there to speaking on stage, so, or I can do lives on Instagram without even thinking about it now. Whereas before, there's no way I would want to speak to anyone, let alone audiences. So that's how I start the process of helping someone, get them to change their belief that I can change, and that I want to change. That's the next step. I want to change, and I acknowledge myself that um, I need to be better, to be a better husband, or to be a better brother, father, son, um, and to find out what's the gift in me. Well, I'm here for something. So yeah, it's an exciting. I'm on a journey with them. So my
I
clients, you
yes.
know,
100%.
yeah.
All right. So let's. What would you say for men lacking confidence listening to this show?
What would I say? In terms of what?
What would you like them to know? Take away from this episode.
The takeaway from this episode is number one, the past is gone. Whatever you think about the past, whatever you've done, good or bad, it's gone. Um, Number two, you're in charge of your life, and you do create your destiny. You can create whatever you want in your life, and that will mean you having to become a different version of you if you want to gain confidence, becoming a different version of you. And then I would say then decide, what does he look like, how does he sound, how does he walk, talk, what's he like around other people, and what's his mission on this planet? Because men like mission. They just do. We like a mission. We like a goal, a focus, a target. So what's your yeah? What's your mission? Where do you intend to go from this? And really decide to make that change and go about. Find a coach or read a book. Start somewhere. Just take one step forward. Yeah, start somewhere.
Well, you heard him. Start somewhere, create your own magic, and we are here to support. Until the next episode, thank you so much. David, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so
Thank,
much.
thank you.